Hello everyone, my name is Brad and welcome to Mediocre Models. In this video I'm going to demonstrate how I'll paint the Waffen SS in the spring/summer smocks using contrast paints. I've got two models here I've already completed. As you can see, I've sort of just used some different shades of greens and things, and I looked up on the internet how to, paint their uniforms, and using just regular paints, it's one of those things it's just difficult to do, or at least I think it is, but using contrast paints doubly so. But I think I've done a good job in finding out or using the right colors. So yeah, I'll be using this model here as a demonstration, obviously. So for the contrast paints, I'll use my German uniform mixture, which is 2 parts Basilicanum Grey and 1 part Creed Camo. Then I've got Darkoath Flesh, Warp Lightning, Dark Angels Green, Skeleton Horde, Gore Grunter Fur, Snakebite Leather, Creed Camo, Black Templar, and Gilman Flesh. Then I've got leadbelcher for any of the metallics, and then I have nuln oil and Agrax earthshade for shades at the end. The model itself is undercoated in Corax White. So yeah, I'll get set up with the first paint and then we can get started. For the first paint I'll use my German uniform mixture. And with this paint I'm going to put it onto his pants and his field cap, as well as the collar that goes around the top of his smock. When putting this on, they all, if you use the SS figures themselves, they all have this collar that sort of pops out the top of their smock. But when putting it anywhere else, you don't have to put it on their pants. You could paint their pants, in the sort of color you're going for with the SS pattern. Same as their field caps as well. You don't have to paint it this way, but I will, because I like the way it looks, and I'm sure I'll have plenty of caps that have got camo on them anyway. So I'm just going to his hat, around the collar, the top part, and I will also put it onto his pants. So I'll finish this off and just let it dry, and then we'll come back to the next colour. Now that the German uniform mixture is almost fully dry, the next colour I'll move on to will be Darkoath Flesh. Now I'm going to use this as the base coat for his smock. When going through pictures online and trying to decide what the base colour for the smock should be, it was a whole bunch of different colours you could choose from, but a lot of them seem to have like an almost, I suppose, pink sort of base colour. So yeah, I decided on using Darkoath Flesh, and I think it gives a nice base colour, and when you add the other colours that we'll add to it to give the camo pattern, I think it looks really good. Alternatively, you could use like a green. You could use really any colour you wanted. Your models, you can paint them how you want. But I just went with the Darkoath Flesh. And this will just go onto his smock. Alternatively, if you don't paint their field caps in, or their pants or anything, you could also paint them in this way, and paint them up using the camo pattern as well. But for this particular one, I'm just going to paint his smock. So I'll continue on, and I'll finish that off. And then once that's dry, we'll come back to the next colour. Now that the Darkoath Flesh is all dry now, the next colour I'm going to move on to will be Warp Lightning. And this will be the first colour I'll use for the camouflage on his smock. When putting this on, I'm just going to use a brush and just do my usual, small to medium size, sort of irregular shapes. But other things you can do, you can get like an old brush and sort of just dapple it on. You could also get like a bit of this packaging that comes in the blister packs and sort of do the same thing and dapple it on, and you'll get sort of irregular shapes. And another thing you could do is also get a toothpick, and you could use that to do your P-dot camo, just dip it in and just do your dots all over the place. But for me, I'm just gonna use a regular brush and just start putting it on. So I'll get set up and then I'll start putting it on. So I'm just about to start putting the warp lightning on, and like I said, I'm just gonna put small, sort of irregular shapes everywhere. I'm putting it on, if you're going to put it on this way or any of the other ways, except for maybe the P-dot, just try not to put too much on and overcrowd the model. There are two other colours I'm going to put on for the camo pattern. That will be Dark Angel's Green and Black Templar. So you sort of just want to leave a bit of space so that you can apply those on and have that 4-colour tone. You don't have to do all the colours. You could just do the 2 or 3 colour tone. So that'll be it for the warp lightning. I'll let that dry and then we'll move on to the next colour. The next colour I'm going to move on to will be Dark Angel's Green, and with this colour I'll do exactly the same thing. Just put small amounts on. You can sort of put it next to the warp lightning, or you can leave spaces and put it sort of in between. Because it's a darker shade of green, you can sort of go over the warp lightning a little bit and make it sort of mix in a little bit and give it that blended sort of feel. And I'll just go around and I'll do this all over him. And then while this dries, I'll go through with Corax White and clean up sort of any areas that I'm going to go on for the next paints for his equipment. So as you can see, it's sort of, once again, small to medium shapes, just wherever. If you're struggling to, do this, or you want something a bit more refined, always recommend going online, just looking up SS uniforms. So that'll be it for him, so I'll go around and I'll fix up any of his equipment and then we can move on to the next colours. Now that I've gone through and cleaned up all his equipment, the next colour I'll move on to will be Skeleton Horde. And with this colour I will paint his gaiters, and I will also paint his breadback as well. If you have any models, that have field caps on and, they've got their hair sticking around the side, you can also use this colour to, paint their hair, give them, blonde hair. But you can also go through with, any sort of browns or blacks or anything like that. So I'll just go through and I'll finish off the Skeleton Horde on him, and then when that's dry we'll move on to the next colour. Now that the Skeleton Horde is basically all fully dry, the next colour I'll move on to will be grunter fur, and with this I will use it to paint in any of the leather straps on the weapons. I'll also use it to paint in his boots as well. Alternatively, you could use Black Templar and paint his boots in black. There's also, if you do get the SS kit, there is one model that's modelled in like a running pose, and he has the jack boots on. I would recommend painting that in with the Black Templar. Just go around and paint all his boots in, and on this particular model I've also given him the sort of the map case. I'll also paint this in using the gore grunter fur. Putting this on, do be careful, as it's quite a strong colour and it will easily go onto the others. So I'll do that and I'll finish him off, and then we'll come back to the next colour. Now that the gore grunter fur is dry, the next colour I'll move on to will be snakebite leather. And with this colour I'll paint it onto any wooden areas of the weapons, so it'll be the main body of the rifle. And also if you have any, modelled with the stick grenades, or they've got the stick grenade actually modelled onto them, I'll paint it onto the handle. Being very careful. And I'll also put this onto the bottoms of their canteens. So I'll go through and I'll finish putting this on. And then once that's dry, we can move on to the next colour. Now that the snakebite leather is basically all fully dry, the next colour I'll move on to will be Creed camo. And I'll put this onto the heads of any stick grenades if you have them, whether they're modelled on or you've got the pose throwing them or something like that. And I'll also put this onto any of their equipment. So that'll be top of their water canteen, or any gas mask containers or anything like that. So I'll let that dry and then we'll move on to the next colour. Now that the Creed camo is fully dry, the next colour I'll move on to will be Black Templar. And with this colour I will put it onto all of his webbing, so the ammo pouches for his rifle, I'll put it onto the holster for his pistol, any of the the straps that go up the back, and go over his shoulders and then down the front, and also put it over any of the straps that are on any of the equipment and that. And then also using this colour, Black Templar, I will also use it as just another highlight onto his, or another camo pattern onto his uniform. But when I put it on, I'll just put small little bits of it, not too much, and I'll just put it generally on the pre-existing two colours already. Then this will just break it up a little bit more, add an extra little bit to it. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I do. I like the look of it. I like the sort of 3 or 4 tone camo pattern, but it's just an optional extra. So I'll go around and I'll finish him off, and then once I'm finished with the Black Templar, I'll clean up his skin on his face and his hands, and then we can move on to the final contrast paint. Now that I've cleaned up all his skin with Corax White and let that dry, the next colour I'll move on to will be Gilman Flesh, and this will just be straight for all of his flesh. So it'll just go straight on. It'll just be obviously for his face and his hands. And then once this is dry, the only thing left to do will be to move on to the metallics and then shades at the end. So I'll finish putting this on, let it all dry, and then we can move on to the metallics. Now that the Gilman Flesh is basically all dry, that's it for the contrast paints. The only thing left to do now is to paint the metallics and then shades. So moving on to the metallics, I'll use leadbelcher, and for this I'll put it onto any metallic areas on the model, so that'll be any of the clips on the front of his webbing, the O-ring at the back, any clips on any of his equipment. If any of them are wearing field caps or the officer's cap, they have like a little eagle on the front. Try and catch that as well. And I'll also paint in any of the metallic areas on the weapons. I always paint all my weapons this way, but you don't have to if you don't want to. I like painting them like this because I just like how it stands out and looks. So I'll go around and I'll finish off all the metallic areas. And then once that's dry, we'll come back and do the shades. Now with all the metallic areas dry, the next thing I'll do will be shade all the metallic areas, and I'll use nuln oil. And this will just be over all the metallic areas that previously painted. So whether that be your weapon if you've painted it like this, for the metallic areas, but also for all the little clips and things on his uniform, on his cap, for the O-ring at the back, and for any parts on his equipment and stuff like that. It'll just be a nice bit of shading and just to darken the colours down a little bit and make them not so bright and stand out. And then once that's dry, we can move on to the final shade, and then we can see what he looks like at the end. Now that the nuln oil is fully dry, the next shade I'll move on to will be Agrax earthshade, and this will just be a shade over the entire model, just to really darken all those colours down, tie them together, and give him that nice dirty war-torn look to him. Make him look like he's been out in the field fighting. I do this on all my models, I like the way it looks. I think it makes them look a bit better and not so pristine and clean. When putting this on, just try to avoid any major pooling, and if you've painted your weapons like I have with the metallic areas, just try to avoid any of the major metallic areas. This will just be an all over shade over the entire model. And then once this is dry, we'll come back and we'll take a look at him, and we'll compare him to his two squad mates. And that'll be it. So I'll let this dry, and then we'll come back and take a final look. Now that the Agrax earthshade is now basically all fully dry, this is what he looks like at the end. As you can see, the shades really brought down all the colours and tied them all in together nicely, and I think it just makes for a really nice looking model. So yeah, so that's what he looks like, and then compared to his two friends, as you can see, they all fit in pretty nicely. So yeah, when painting, SS uniforms or anything like that, there's, literally 101 ways you can do it. It's not just like all the different colors. You can do different base colors for his smock, and different greens and blacks and browns and everything, but it's also the pattern you can also apply to smock as well. You know, as I went through before, there's stippling processes, or you could use the toothpick for P dot or anything like that. And yeah, there's just so many different ways you can paint their uniforms. And it's not just limited to their smock. Like I said before, you can also do it onto their pants, also onto, you know, any of the field caps, or, you know, if they have the camo nettings on their helmets or anything like that. There's just so many different ways you can paint these models, and you know, I really enjoyed painting these up because it's just a fun little challenge, especially using contrast paints. So yeah, I hope you like the way these came out, and you know, I hope that inspires you to, you know, paint your own models using contrast paints if you liked it. So yeah, all I can recommend is just, you know, experimenting and trying and finding the colors and the painting style that suits you. I mean, they're your models, you can paint them however you want. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.